You know, the second reading that we usually have for Sunday Mass doesn't always fit into the Gospel in the first reading. The first and the Gospel usually are chosen to interact with each other, but the second reading is just a semi-continuous reading from a particular book. But today we have the advantage of seeing how that second reading does pick out an important aspect of the Gospel, that opening line. Where jealousy and selfish ambition exist, there is disorder and every foul practice. That is what we see in the Gospel, this jealousy. They're asking each other, who's the greatest? And so Jesus gives them a different vision of greatness by giving them a different vision of God. He wants them to imagine God as a child. Interesting. What is it about a child? Well, first of all, a child is both vulnerable and a gift. When a child comes into the world, it is totally dependent on the adult world, and in fact is trusting that everything will be taken care of. So too, God has been so very trusting us. God has created the world and handed it over to us. God has given us His Son. And even though we nailed Him to the cross, He has a Son come back again and again through the resurrection to be with us. God is one who is able to be vulnerable in loving us. And that is one way to break the fever of jealousy, to really begin to see that we have the great strength of being vulnerable in our love, of taking chances, of forgiving someone again, of giving people another chance in life. It is that ability, as a child is vulnerable, to be vulnerable as God is. That's what greatness is about. But secondly, a child is a great gift, is very perceptive about things. If you've noticed, it's always interesting for me to see how a child, and a little child, can pick up languages very quickly because they have the ability to be perceptive about things. They're able to delight in the way things that they discover in the world. And that is what God does as well. God creates the world, and each day He says it is good. God delights in the world. Jesus manifests that same quality, as you remember in that scene in which He sees all the people in the temple area. And He notices that old widow who puts her little coin into the treasury. He notices those small things. He's able to see and be perceptive of the wonderful things that are happening. And so too, one of the ways in which we can break the fever of jealousy is to put aside a pessimistic outlook on life, where we're dour all the time and seeing only bad news, but rather that we can delight in the fact that there are so many good things that are happening in the world today, and point out the wonderful talents and abilities of people, maybe where others have not recognized before. That kind of generous spirit of being able to notice how others have gifts, in fact, that are enriching the world and enriching our lives. So today, the Lord wants us to break the fever of jealousy, of an overwrought competition with each other, where we have to think we put others down in order for us to rise up. He reminds us what greatness is all about. We are made in the image of God, and we're called to be great as God is, a God that we should imagine as a child, vulnerable enough to accept the love of others, to depend on others, and be willing, in fact, to have our hearts broken when they disappoint us, but also like a child who has the gift of perception, to see the good things in the world and delight in that. And so, if we truly want to be great, we should be like God, God who is like a child.